Welcome back. A ton of you have been following all of my tutorials about getting your games up and running, adding in some cool features, but I've been noticing that you have hit a roadblock as far as being able to build your game, publish it, let friends try it out and whatnot. How do you go from your game inside of Unity to a publishable game that is accepted by Steam or the Oculus Store, or even something that you can put on a Google Drive that your friend can download and try out? Well, in today's video, that's what we're talking about. I'm going to show you step by step how to build for an Oculus Quest 2 platform, and also how to build to other platforms that are PC oriented, like the Valve Index or the HTC Vive and a few others. So let's jump into the computer and I'll show you how to do it. Now, once we open up Unity Hub, the first thing you need to do is check to make sure you have the right modules installed so that you can actually build to an Android platform or a Windows platform. Unfortunately, Mac and Linux platforms are not supported yet, so you will have to make sure you have a PC or just a Oculus Quest 2 standalone. So inside of Unity Hub, we're going to go over here on the left side to installs. And you'll see here I have 2021.2.10 installed, and there is a newer version. There's 2021.2.12 that just released, so I'm going to install that. And you'll see after I click on install, it's going to give me a list of modules that I can install. So I'm going to go through and check all of the Android options, so build support as well as Android SDK and NDK tools as well as the OpenJDK. And then I'm also going to check the Windows build support IL2CPP. And then I don't need documentation for this particular case, so I'll uncheck that. And then I'll hit continue. It's going to have me agree to the terms and conditions and then install. And once you get it all installed, it should look like this. All the check marks. And now we can go ahead and start our project. So I'm going to jump into projects. For this particular one, we're just going to use a standard URP project. Make sure up here at the top to select the proper version. So I'm going to use the one we just installed, 2021.2.12. This tutorial that I'm walking through right now should work at anything 2020.2 and above. While this is spinning up, I just want to let you know that, of course, you can follow through this tutorial step by step and learn the process of how I do things, or if you're interested, you can join my Patreon and support me that way and get access to this project as a downloadable. So there's a link down in the description, and I'll put one up here in the top corner as well. And there's a new tier on Patreon that lets you have access to videos a week early. If you want to see what next week's video is going to be, then check out the Patreon too, and you can actually see what the title is going to be, and if you support me, you'll have access to see the video early. I am first going to show you how to build for the Oculus Quest 2 standalone, and then we're going to swap back and do a build for just PC devices. First things first, let's jump into the build settings and swap that over to Android. We're going to be doing the Android build settings first for the Oculus Quest 2 standalone, or the Meta Quest 2 as it's now called. And then after I show you how to set all that up, we're going to swap over and do the PC build. And there'll be time steps down below that you can jump around if you prefer. So first thing to do is make sure you add the scene that you want to build. So just click on this Add Open Scenes button, and you should see the scene pop in. And if you have multiple scenes in here, you can check and uncheck which ones you actually want to go to the build. So if you have like a test scene in here or whatnot, you can uncheck that for your final build or whatever. And then if you installed the Android module correctly, you should see this Android tab here, as well as a switch platform button down at the bottom. If it says something like, make sure to install Android SDK or whatnot, make sure to go back to modules right at the beginning and make sure you checked all of the boxes for Android. Inside of here, all we really need to do is change the texture compression from use player settings over to ASTC. And then if you have your Quest plugged in, and if you have selected to enable computer file access, then under Run Device, you should see your Oculus Quest 2 here as well. And now we can just hit switch platform and that will go ahead and flip over. If you have already got an existing project up and running, this may take a few minutes. For me, since there's nothing in the project, it's actually pretty quick. One more thing to do is to change the max texture size to 2048. The maximum texture that the Oculus Quest is able to render is a 2K image, and so we don't want anything above 2K getting into this build because it's just going to increase processing power without actually giving us any better performance or anything. So our build settings are set up correctly. We need to actually go into the project settings now and set some of those up now. We can get to the project settings by going to Edit and then Project Settings. And inside of here, there's a few things we need to jump around and hit. First thing is go into Player, and then make sure your company name is whatever your software game company is called, or if you don't have one, just enter your name in here. So Justin P. Barnett. And then whatever your project's name is, this can be a temporary name at this point if you want. I'm just going to leave mine as build tutorial. It automatically adds in whatever your project name is into here. And then this is also where you'll increase the version. As you release your game and do updates to it, you'll want to make sure to increase the version. So this first number here will be the major releases. So whenever I do a full-on release out of alpha, we'll change this over to a 1.0, and then every minor release will be a 1.1, and then any bug fixes that you release will be 1.1.1. So first number is going to be a major release, second number is going to be a minor update, and then the third number is a bug fix. So that's how the majority of games and just software in general is updated and the versions are kept track of. Here you can also add in a default icon for if the player has the game actually installed on their computer, and when it's on the desktop, what icon is it going to have? So this is where you add that in. And then if we scroll down inside of other settings, all the way down to the identification section, you'll see that here is com.justinpbarnett.buildtutorial. This is what the name of the build is going to show up as inside of my quest. So it's going to be the whatever the name of the project is. So whatever this product name is what the name of the game is going to be inside of my Oculus Quest. And then this com.justinpbarnett.buildtutorial is going to be the subtext of whatever company it was from. And then you'll see that the version got updated from the top down to here as well. And then this bundle version code you can increase. Let's say you've already put this app on your Quest 2. If you increase this bundle version code, it will basically split the APK and allow you to pick one or the other and not overwrite it when you add it to the Quest. If you're only ever planning on using one version of your build and updating that every time, then you don't really have to worry about this. And then we need to make sure that the minimum API level is going to be 6.0 Marshmallow. This is the minimum API that the Android device your Oculus Quest runs, so we need to make sure that we are 6.0 or higher, and then the target API level should be maximum. So we'll leave it set to automatic or the highest installed. And then last thing, as far as package and downloading and all that stuff goes, we need to go down to this install location inside of the configuration section, and instead of prefer external, we're going to swap that over to automatic. So that's all the package identification stuff that you actually need to go through to set. Now we're going to actually add VR to our project. So go down all the way to the bottom, XR Plugin Management, and click on the Install XR Plugin Management button. And you'll see, since my project is already in an Android mode, we've already swapped the build version over to Android, we automatically pop up on this Android tab. And so you'll see we have three options here. So we're going to check Oculus. Since we are planning on building this to the Oculus Quest 2, we want to build for an Oculus platform. After that installs, you'll notice an Oculus tab pop up down here at the bottom. And we just want to make sure that all these settings are correct. So multipass is checked correctly. And then we want to use a low overhead mode. And then make sure you set the proper target devices. So if you only want your game to run on Oculus Quest 2s and not the original Oculus Quest, because your game requires some more performance or something like that, then you can actually do that here and specify I only want it to run on Quest 2s. And here's also where you can set your splash image to show up right before the game actually plays what logo is going to show up. And if we jump over to the player tab again, you'll notice that we have actually been working in the Android tab as well. So all of these settings we've been playing around with are specifically for Android. And now there's a few other more rendering and performance type settings we want to swap around in the player tab as well. So still in player, still in Android, we want to swap the color space over to linear. This will make it for a little more realistic coloring. We're going to uncheck the auto graphics API, and Vulkan is actually still in experimental mode, so we are just going to remove that. You can keep it there if you want, if your particular app uses the benefits of Vulkan but doesn't actually hit any of the drawbacks or downsides or anything like that. For our purposes, we're just going to use OpenGL ES3. Scroll down a little bit more, make sure that multi-threaded rendering is checked. Texture compression is going to be ASTC, like we swapped it to in the build settings. And if we scroll down to configuration again, we're going to swap from mono to IL2CPP as the scripting backend. And this will enable us to use ARM v64. So we're going to uncheck ARM v7. So it's just a more updated, better performant architecture. And then last thing we need to do for the Oculus Quest is to set up some more quality and rendering settings. So let's jump over to quality over here. Scroll up to the top, and then we're going to actually add our own quality level. So click add quality level. It's going to say level 6. We're going to swap this for standalone VR. And then we'll go down to the bottom of the Android column. Click on that down arrow and set standalone VR as the default for Android. And now in here, there's a few performance related settings. So we're going to set pixel light count as a maximum to 1. Increase the anti-aliasing up to 4x. Make sure the texture quality is on full res. And we're going to uncheck soft particles. And up here on VSync count, you'll see that every VSync and every second VSync is ignored. So we're just going to say don't sync. For terrain, just make sure that billboards face camera position is checked as well. And you can also adjust your shadows and whatnot here. So how far out can you see the shadows and whatnot, so you can bring that in if it is adding a little more performance in. And time, we can adjust our fixed timestamp to match the Quest's frame rate. So we'll say 1/72 as our fixed timestamp. And that may increase a little bit more performance, but that's the rate at which the Quest is processing is 1/72, or it can be increased to 1/90, so you could do that if you know your game is always going to be played at 1/90 hertz. But just to stay safe, we're going to leave it at the minimum, which is 1/72. We are ready to build our app. So technically we're not very ready, because inside of our sample scene we don't actually even have a VR rig or anything like that. Feel free to check out my intro to VR tutorials for that. I'm going to be releasing soon a tutorial walkthrough of how to set up AutoHand, how to set up Hurricane VR. So make sure you are subscribed and have the notification bell turned on so you actually get notified when I go live with those. But once you have that set up, let's go to File, Build Settings. Make sure you have the Oculus Quest 2 selected on as your run device. Make sure the maximum texture size is selected and hit apply for that. It will go through all of your textures and compress them down a little bit that you already have installed. And then you have two options here. You have build, which will just create a build.apk file, but not put it on your Quest device. So in this case, you would have to side quest it to your Quest or go through the Oculus developer app to actually put this APK file on your Quest. Or what I like to do is hit build and run, and that will add the APK file that it generates automatically to your headset and go ahead and start playing it. So I usually do build and run because it just saves me a step. So it's going to pop up a UI that says, okay, well, where do I put this build file? So we're going to create a new folder called builds. And then inside of that, I like to name my file whatever the project name is and then underscore whatever version it is. So we're going to call this build tutorial underscore, and then we had version 1.1.1 in this demo case, so I'm going to say v1.1.1. And that's how I like to name my projects. And then so I'm going to hit save, and it will go ahead and generate this build file and put it on my headset. Now, the first time you run this build, it's going to probably take a few minutes, especially if you have a lot of assets or models in your scene. It may take a little while, but the second time you run it and thereafter, it will be a whole lot faster, because this first time it caches a lot of that information, all that lighting information and whatnot. So the second and third and however many more times you do a build, it's going to be a whole lot faster. And if everything goes well, you should see a build completed with result of succeeded down at the bottom or in your console, and that it was successfully added to your quest. If it for some reason has some kind of error, it'll show up here in your console and tell you exactly what went wrong, so you can just basically copy paste that error into Google, look for it, and that should give you the fix. If you can't find a fix for your build or something goes wrong, feel free to join our Discord. We have a very helpful dev help section that we are constantly updating to make as useful to y'all as possible. So feel free to join the Discord server. It's great fun. We have a lot of really cool, really knowledgeable people to help you out. Alright, so the way you actually get to the app is, well, it should just automatically pop up when you do the build. But if you close out of it accidentally or something like that happened, then the way you get to the apps that you have personally installed on your Quest are to be going to this little bottom bar at the bottom, click on the apps waffle on the side there, and it'll pop up all of the apps that you have downloaded right now, but you won't be able to see the apps that you downloaded. So if you go to all, and then down to unknown sources, you should see your app here. So it's named build tutorial, which is what the project is called, and then the com.companyname.actual app name is going to be down below, and that's going to be yours. So you click on that, and it'll pop it up just like any other app. So you have the made with Unity if you didn't change your default app, and then you'll see this one actually doesn't move around when I move my head because I didn't add in an XR rig to it. But if I hold down the Oculus button, it should pop up just like a normal Oculus app, and then I can hit quit and it'll drop me back out of it. So that's just how you get to your Quest apps if you want to show friends when they come over or something. You have to make sure you go to unknown sources. And you'll see in my file explorer, so this is how you actually get to the build. So you find the Unity project that you have, and then inside of builds, you'll see that I have an APK file, and it's named with the version number, which is very nice for my case. So all you have to do is take this file and give it to whoever you want, and they'll need to side quest it to their device, but once they do that, they can play it no problem. Okay, that's all well and good, but what if I have a Valve Index, or if I want to play a PC-oriented game? Well, it's actually a very similar process. So we're going to go up to File again and Build Settings, and then we're going to swap back over to our Windows, Mac, and Linux platform. For this particular case, we are not going to cap our textures, so I'm going to set that back to no override. Make sure our target platform is Windows, because Mac and Linux will not work, unfortunately. And then make sure you have the correct scene in here as well. And then if we go back into project settings, so edit project settings, and then inside of player, you'll see we are now on the Windows tab. So our Android should save all of the settings that we originally had there. Here on our Windows tab, we have linear color space already checked. The auto graphics and everything actually should be fine for this. I like to always change my scripting backend to IL2CPP just because I think it's a little more performant. But other than that, I think we are good as far as the player settings go. We did a lot of that right up front. And then if we jump back into our XR plugin management tab, you'll see over here now we're on the Windows tab. We're going to check OpenXR, and that's what a lot of companies are using now. A lot of devices use OpenXR as the middle layer for their platform, and so OpenXR basically interprets whatever codes I'm sending through Unity. It'll hit OpenXR, and OpenXR will say, okay, well, this person is using a Valve Index, so I'm going to interpret all of my inputs as a Valve Index device. OpenXR actually uses the new input system, so it's going to prompt you to restart Unity. So just hit yes, it'll turn Unity off, turn it back on, swap it to the new input system. Once you download OpenXR, you'll get a little warning triangle, so click on that. It'll give you a list of all of the issues it has with your current project. Right now, it just wants me to add in some interaction profiles. So I can click edit, it'll automatically bring me to the OpenXR tab down here. So all it did was swap me over to this new OpenXR tab. And it wants me to add in some interaction profiles. So every device that you imagine your game being played on, add all of those profiles here. So HTC, we're going to add the Oculus Touch, we're going to add the Microsoft Motion Controller, and Valve Index. These are going to be your most popular controller profiles. And then I usually will swap render mode from single pass instantiated to multipass. It requires more draw calls, but it does render it a little better. It's basically doing one draw call for each eye, or one round of draw calls for each eye. So it requires a little more processing power, but I think it's generally better in the end. And then here you can actually specify what the OpenXR runtime should specifically be on. I usually just go with system default because each user will configure their computer a little bit differently. And there we go. That's all the settings for the PC devices. So we're going to go back into build settings. So file, build settings. You should have everything set up here. And I'm just going to click build and run again. It'll prompt you to say, okay, well, where do I add this build? So I'm going to click on builds and then just select that folder. And it's going to create a whole folder for the PC build. So that's a little bit of a difference between the Android specific build, which will give you just a .apk file, or the PC build, which will give you a whole folder with a .exe file inside of it. And if you're sending this to a friend or adding it to Steam or something, you want to send the whole folder as a zip file. And just like the Android version, the first build will take a little while, but after the first build, it caches a lot of things and will build a whole lot faster the next time. And if we go look at this build, you'll see that it actually gave me a whole bunch of stuff. So I actually should have made a whole new folder. So we're going to call this one build tutorial v1.1.1 again, just like the other one. There we go. So I made a build tutorial v whatever version it is and added in all of the files that it gave me when I downloaded the project. And so you would actually want to not send the sole.exe file, even though this is what you double click on to actually run it. You would go back and turn this into a zip file. So right click, send to compressed zip folder, and it will automatically zip up all of those files inside of this folder. And this zip file is what you would send to a Google Drive to a friend, or someone to test it or whatnot. So you need the whole folder, not just the .exe file. And there we go. That's two different ways to build your project, one for PC and one for Android. I really hope this tutorial was helpful for you to be able to have your project tested by friends. And also, if you're interested in actually publishing your game to itch or to SideQuest or the Oculus Store or to Steam even, you would go through this process to get a published version of your game. And if you run into any issues or anything like that, feel free to join our Discord. We have a super active community, super helpful people, and it's really fun. And we're gonna start playing some games and doing some other things in the Discord as well. So you'll get you'll get the first heads up of when we're playing games or when new videos come out or whatnot. Speaking of which, make sure you are subscribed and have the notification bell turned on so you get notified when I post new videos, because YouTube's algorithm doesn't show you the new videos all the time, so make sure the notification bell's on. And other than that, I will see you next week.